Cuba in the 1950s seemed like a tropical paradise, with its enchanting beaches and vibrant music, but only if you were incredibly wealthy or a mafia boss. In 1952, Fulgencio Batista realized he was going to lose the presidential election in a humiliating fashion. Instead of improving his platform, he opted for the easiest solution: a military coup, canceling the election and declaring himself absolute dictator. Mafia activities flourished while the people suffered. It was then that a young, ambitious, and furious lawyer named Fidel Castro emerged. Fidel tried to sue Batista in court, and when his case was dismissed, he laughed and told the camera, "Okay, plan B, violence." Fidel gathered his friends and launched a dawn attack on the Moncada military barracks in a disastrous plan that ended in utter failure and the deaths of most of his comrades. Fidel was arrested, and in court he gave a long, dramatic speech, which he ended with his famous phrase, "History will acquit me." He was sentenced to 15 years in prison, but Batista made a huge political mistake and pardoned him after only 2 years, only to exile him, believing that he had gotten rid of this troublesome young man forever. Fidel was exiled to Mexico, where a pivotal encounter took place. Sitting in a cafe, he met an Argentinian doctor, a cigar-smoking anti-imperialist named Ernesto, but known to everyone as Che Guevara. "Would you like to come back to Cuba with me and overthrow a dictator using a small boat and a few rifles?" Fidel asked. Che's eyes lit up with excitement, as if Fidel had read his mind. Fidel bought a small, dilapidated wooden yacht called the Granma. Although designed for only 12 people, he crammed 82 fighters onto it. They set sail in stormy weather, all seasick, and instead of a heroic landing on the Cuban coast, they became stuck in a muddy swamp. Batista's army was waiting to greet them with a hail of bullets. The result was another military disaster, with most of them killed and only about 12 to 20 men surviving, including Fidel, his brother Raúl, and Che Guevara, who were forced to flee for their lives and take refuge in the rugged and desolate Sierra Maestra mountains. Deep in the forests and mountains, the few survivors began a fierce guerrilla war. Lacking razors in the jungle, they grew beards, which became their trademark, earning them the nickname Los Barbudos, the bearded ones. Fidel began launching small, swift attacks, winning the sympathy of local peasants who aided and sheltered him. He also wielded a weapon far more powerful than his few rifles: the media. Fidel secretly interviewed an American journalist, presenting himself to the Western world as a romantic, Robin Hood-like hero fighting for freedom and justice. Batista went into a frenzy, ordering his generals to eliminate these bearded men. He dispatched a massive army of 10,000 soldiers to the mountains, but to his surprise, his troops were unwilling to fight. Many even threw down their weapons and defected to Fidel's ranks. Batista, witnessing this collapse, exclaimed in despair, "Man, this is not very good." By 1958, Batista's regime was crumbling. Even the United States, which had been supporting him, looked on at the chaos and decided to wash its hands of the whole affair. Che Guevara led a decisive attack on Santa Clara, destroying an armored train full of weapons, and Batista realized that the game was officially over. On New Year's Eve, during a lavish party, Batista pretended to leave for a moment, but instead ran off with bags full of millions of stolen dollars and jumped into a plane, fleeing to the Dominican Republic. On the 8th of January 1959, Fidel Castro entered Havana in triumph to the cheers of the crowds. The United States approached him cautiously and said, "Congratulations, you're not a communist, are you?" "We hate communists." Fidel replied with feigned innocence that he would simply nationalize all American factories and companies and sign an agreement with the Soviets. America's face turned red with anger, beginning a new chapter of economic blockade, assassination attempts with exploding cigars, and a missile crisis that almost ended the world. But that's a story for another video.